started with a smear, a Berg *NDY streak, maybe 2 inches long, pressed against the inner armrest of the front passenger seat. The kind of thing you'd miss if you weren't looking for it. But I was, not intentionally, not at first. I was reaching down to grab a dropped receipt, just something crumpled near the floor mat, when I saw it. A deep red, bold, sharp, not the kind of shade Melissa would wear. She hated loud colors, said they clashed with her complexion. She stuck to soft tones, light pinks, coral when she was feeling adventurous. Berg *NDY wasn't her. I stared at it for longer than I should have. Like if I just looked hard enough, it would vanish. Like I could will it into being a smudge from a pen or a melted crayon from her niece. But it was lipstick. That was certain. Still, I sat back in the seat and gave myself a full 30 seconds to come up with an explanation that didn't feel like a punch to the stomach. Someone borrowed the car? Coworker, maybe? A friend from her training group? But that didn't sit right. Melissa's car was off limits. I learned that the hard way when I moved the seat without putting it back. She acted like I'd scratched the paint. My hand moved on its own, lifting the armrest, checking for more. Nothing. But then I caught the scent. It wasn't Melissa's. Not even close. She wore something light and floral, like jasmine with hints of vanilla. This one was stronger, richer, like spiced fruit with something muskier underneath. It clung to the fabric like it had been sprayed just hours ago, though Melissa hadn't driven the car since last night. I sat frozen. My heartbeat slowed down in that strange, awful way where it actually feels louder. Like your body's trying to keep you calm while your brain is starting to spiral. That's when I remembered the crumpled receipt. I unfolded it, and everything else faded away. Rivermont Hotel. Room service. 2 entrees, champagne, dessert. Date, Friday. Time, 10:42 p.m. I read it 3 times, hoping the date would change. Hoping I read it wrong. Hoping it would say Monday or lunch or anything other than exactly when Melissa had said she was at Kayla's. Kayla had a spare room, she told me. I was too wiped after the run to drive home. We stayed up talking and crashed around midnight. She said that while still wearing her coat. Her hair slightly tangled, her eyes guarded. I hadn't noticed it then, not consciously, but her presence felt off. She didn't move like someone who'd just had a casual night in with a friend. She was trying too hard to look relaxed. Her voice was just a bit too even. At the time, I didn't question it. Not out loud. I wanted to believe her. Now I couldn't even pretend. I leaned back in the seat and stared at the dash. The car was off, but I hadn't even realized I hadn't gone inside yet. The house was maybe 10 feet away. Porch light glowing. Our dog barking faintly from the other side of the door. She was probably inside already, heating up leftovers or scrolling her phone, completely unaware that I was unraveling in the driveway. I felt sick. Not the throw-up kind. The kind where your chest gets tight and your ribs feel like they're folding in. My brain raced not with anger but with logistics. Scenarios. All the ways this could be explained away. Maybe Kayla had a friend staying over. Maybe Melissa had lent the car. Maybe... No, not anymore. I was tired of the maybes. Tired of playing devil's advocate in my own marriage. For the past 6 months, I'd been quiet. A chosen grace. I gave her the benefit of the doubt more times than I could count. But this wasn't something that could be waved off with a half smile and a soft excuse. I turned the engine back on and sat with the hum for a while. Just breathing. Just trying to keep my hands from shaking. The receipt was still in my lap. The scent still in the air. The smear still burned into my vision. Eventually, I got out of the car and walked up to the door. The house felt foreign somehow, like I was stepping into someone else's life. My hand hesitated on the doorknob. It was such a simple thing, walking into your own home. But tonight, it felt like crossing into enemy territory. The door clicked open and there she was, standing at the stove back to me, hair tied up messily, wearing one of her oversized sweatshirts, reheating something in the pan, probably the leftovers from that Thai place she liked. She turned when she heard the door. "Hey," she said casually, flashing a warm smile. "I thought you were going to stop by your brother's place?" I didn't say anything. She tilted her head. You okay? I walked toward her and held out the receipt. Her eyes dropped to it. She didn't take it. She just looked. I watched her pupils shift as she registered it. 1 beat. 2. Then she blinked slowly and said, "It's not what you think." There it was. Not anger. Not guilt. Not even surprise. Just those 5 words. I wanted to scream. To shake her. To demand the version of her I married step forward and explain this. But instead I just stood there. Frozen. Receipt dangling between us like a courtroom exhibit. I waited for something. Tears, a confession, an apology. But she just turned off the stove and leaned against the counter, crossing her arms. I don't remember what I said next. I think I asked her if Kayla knew about the hotel. She mumbled something about a booking error. I asked who ordered the champagne. She laughed, actually laughed, and said I was reading too much into things. That's when it hit me harder than the stain, harder than the scent, harder than the receipt. It wasn't that she'd done it. It was how easily she expected me to accept it. The truth wasn't just that she was lying. It was that she didn't think she had to try very hard anymore. Like I'd been worn down so much I'd just absorb it. Like my suspicion didn't matter. Like I didn't matter. I didn't throw the receipt. Didn't yell. Didn't even raise my voice. I folded it neatly and slipped it into my pocket. Then I told her I was going for a walk. She nodded like that was normal. Like everything was fine. Like her world wasn't about to shift beneath her feet. And maybe it wasn't. Not yet. But mine already had. Funny how your brain works when the truth finally breaks through. It's like flipping a switch and suddenly everything. Every tiny red flag you ignored, every moment you brushed off as paranoia, comes crashing in like a tidal wave. That walk I took after showing her the receipt wasn't really a walk. I wandered the neighborhood, but I wasn't paying attention to where I was going. I could have circled the same block 3 times for all I know. My feet moved, but my mind was locked in replay mode. A year's worth of moments unraveling like a thread I hadn't even realized was wrapped around my neck. Started so subtly. A new interest in skincare. At first it was cute. She said she wanted to try a nighttime routine. I remember laughing, teasing her about turning into one of those YouTube beauty bloggers. She smiled and told me, "I just want to feel better about myself." Innocent enough. Then came the lingerie. Lacy, expensive, barely their pieces in tiny black boxes she kept tucked away in the back of her drawer. When I first saw them, I thought maybe it was for me, maybe a surprise. But weeks passed. I never saw her wear any of it. Not once. She started staying up late. Not outrageously so, just long enough to seem normal, an email here, a Zoom call there. Once, I woke up at 2 a.m. and found the bathroom light on. She was inside, whispering. I opened the door, and she jumped like a kid caught sneaking snacks. Told me she was on a call with a colleague in Asia. Time zones, she said. I believed her. Or at least I pretended to. The clothes changed too. Tighter. Shorter. Bolder colors. Melissa used to scoff at women who wore bodycon dresses and heels to casual brunches. Then suddenly, she was the one picking out plunging necklines and stiletto boots for what she called low-key events. I made a comment once. Something about how she used to hate those kinds of outfits. She shrugged and said, "People change." Yeah, people change. And so did her laughter. That part still stings the most. It used to be ours. Something warm and soft, reserved for dumb jokes I'd make when we were watching old sitcoms or people watching at the mall. Now she laughed at her phone. Constantly. The kind of laughter you can't fake. Head thrown back. Shoulders shaking. Sometimes she'd put a hand over her mouth to quiet herself. Then tap 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 until the screen went dark when I entered the room. "Work chat," she said. Right. I remember one morning, maybe 6 months ago, I was in the kitchen making coffee when I heard a chime from her phone on the table. It was a text, and all I caught was a name, R. Just the letter. That's all it showed. She snatched it up like it was a live grenade. Her explanation? Team lead from my new client's side. I didn't even ask for more. That's how far gone I was. So desperate to avoid rocking the boat, I let myself drift. Her scent changed too. That delicate vanilla jasmine I loved. Suddenly it was swapped for something heavier, darker. I joked that it smelled like she walked through a department store perfume section. She told me it was a sample she got and that I'd get used to it. Then came the trips. Weekend trainings. Corporate retreats. Always conveniently scheduled around the times I couldn't come with her. The excuses lined up too well. A month before our anniversary, she had a last-minute conference. I offered to fly out and meet her after. She said it wasn't worth the trouble. "We'll celebrate next weekend," she promised. But the next weekend, she was exhausted from back-to-back sessions. Looking back now, the web is so obvious I feel stupid for not seeing it sooner. There was one night, I'll never forget it, she came home late wearing a hoodie I didn't recognize. Not hers. Too big. It smelled like men's cologne. When I asked about it, she blinked and said it was cold after the seminar. Someone lent it to me. She didn't say who. I didn't press. God, I wish I had pressed. And then there were the receipts. Literal ones. A massage parlor downtown she swore was for tension relief. A boutique hotel bar tab listed under her name when she said she was at a wine tasting across town. A pair of concert tickets I found in her purse, never used, never mentioned. At first, I kept them. Like artifacts. Tucked in a drawer in the study under old phone chargers and expired coupons. I don't know why. Maybe some part of me was building a case without admitting I needed one. Maybe I thought if I collected enough pieces, I could assemble a version of her that made sense again. But what finally got me wasn't physical. It was emotional. I started noticing how carefully neutral she became with me. Not cold, just efficient. She asked how my day was but didn't listen to the answer. She'd smile during dinner but never really look at me. Her touch, when it came, felt like muscle memory. Habit, not intention. One night, I reached over in bed just to hold her hand. She didn't pull away. But she didn't squeeze back either. Just lay there. Still. Like she didn't know how to be touched anymore. I remember thinking maybe it was me. Maybe I was the one pulling away without realizing it. So I made an effort, planned a weekend getaway. Booked a cabin upstate, just the two of us. She canceled last minute. Said a team presentation was moved up and she couldn't reschedule. She didn't even sound sorry. She texted a thumbs-up emoji when I told her I'd go alone. That was when something cracked. Not loudly. Just a hairline fracture somewhere in my foundation. And then came the whispers. Friends starting to ask strange questions. "Everything okay with you too?" My sister, out of nowhere, asked why Melissa had unfollowed her on social media. A coworker of hers, someone I barely knew, once made an offhand comment at a barbecue about how Melissa always travels with that guy, right? I laughed and asked what guy. He brushed it off. Even then, I didn't want to know. I couldn't admit to myself that this person I loved, this woman I built a future with, had become a stranger sitting across from me every night. A stranger who looked just like the woman I married but didn't sound or move like her anymore. Now, standing in my garage, hours after I handed her that receipt, I saw it all with perfect clarity. It wasn't the lipstick that broke me. Or the perfume. Or even the hotel receipt. It was the realization that I'd been living next to a lie for over a year, watching it grow roots under my own roof while I told myself it was just a phase. The memory of her voice that night rang in my head again. "It's not what you think." But it was. It was exactly what I thought. And now I was done pretending it wasn't. I didn't go back to sleep that night. Melissa eventually crept upstairs, the floorboards giving her away. I heard the closet door open, then close. Water running briefly in the bathroom. Her usual bedtime routine, down to the exact order of motions. Too exact. Too practiced. I sat in the home office, lights off, chair turned toward the dark window. My reflection hovered in the glass, hollow-eyed and still. The hotel receipt was on the desk beside me, unfolded, flattened. I hadn't touched it since setting it there. She hadn't asked about it again. That silence told me everything I needed. The next morning, I left before she woke up. Told her I had an early meeting, which wasn't a lie. But I wasn't heading to the office, I was heading to storage. A cluttered side closet in the garage, behind an old tool rack and boxes of holiday decorations. That's where we'd stashed the electronics we didn't use anymore. Cords, dead routers, a Blu-ray player. And an old iPad, one of the early generations. I'd almost forgotten about it. Melissa had set it up years ago for travel. We'd both logged into the same Apple account back then, mostly for calendar syncing. It hadn't been turned on in forever. But the moment the screen blinked to life, I felt it. The gut twist of someone opening a door they weren't sure they wanted to walk through. The battery was at 4%. I plugged it in and waited. What I found didn't surprise me, not exactly. But it still wrecked something inside me. The Messages app was the first to light up. Somehow it had kept syncing. Not all messages, just some. Enough. The contact name was bland. M Consulting. The kind of title you'd skim over if you weren't paying attention. Generic. Professional. Safe. I opened the thread. Ryan. I remembered the name instantly. Her personal trainer from last year. The guy she raved about for weeks, the one with the high-intensity interval genius routine. She stopped seeing him supposedly because his schedule got too booked. I even made a joke about it. Told her she was grieving her fitness soulmate. Apparently not. The messages were casual at first. Great job today, you crushed it. Let me know if that stretch still feels tight. That was the cover. A digital breadcrumb trail meant to look boring. Then came the emojis. Then the photos. Then the videos. She'd sent him selfies. Hotel mirrors, gym locker rooms, dressing rooms. Always from flattering angles. In one, she was halfway through changing, holding her shirt up, biting her lip, the phone capturing just enough skin to make me feel nauseous. Another had her perched on a bed, our bed. I recognized the comforter, the throw pillow we bought in Sedona. Her hair was damp and she was holding a glass of wine. The caption read, "Wish you were here instead of him." My stomach dropped. The worst wasn't the images. Or even the flirty banter. It was the audio messages, little whispers meant for him, not me. "You'd laugh if you heard the way he talks in his sleep," she said in one. "Like he's solving math problems. Nerdy and sweet. Kind of sad." Another, "I almost slipped last night. He noticed the perfume. I told him it was Kayla's. He bought it." There it was. Proof I had, in fact, been lied to, mocked for believing her lies. The timestamps matched too closely with her supposed work trips. One of the files had a geotag that aligned with the exact hotel on the receipt I found. I kept scrolling. My eyes burned, but I couldn't stop. She had ***ed our conversations. Ones where I told her I missed her while she was away. She'd sent them to Ryan with laughing emojis. He responded with gifs. They made fun of my punctuation. My dad texts, she called them. It wasn't just cheating. It was cruelty. I closed the app and stared at the home screen, then opened her iCloud. There was more. A hidden album in her Photos app titled PT Work. Password protected, but the same 4-digit PIN she'd used since college worked. I wish I hadn't looked. It wasn't graphic. But it didn't need to be. Him in a hotel mirror. Her bare shoulder. His hand on her thigh. Them together, always from angles that made it clear this was meant to be private. And an asterisk, mate. And repeated. This had been going on longer than I thought. I checked the earliest photo. 9 months ago. The same week I had taken on that massive work project and was pulling 12-hour days. While I was burning out to keep the bills paid, she was filming pillow talk with a guy she used to pay by the hour. I stood up so fast the chair nearly tipped over. I didn't know where to put the rage. It didn't come out as yelling. It came out as cold stillness. Like all my feelings had frozen in place. I backed up the files. Not because I planned to use them, but because I needed to know they were real. That I wasn't imagining this. That it wasn't a bad dream I'd wake up from. And then I shut the iPad, set it face down on the table, and stared at the wall for what must have been an hour. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I made a folder on my laptop. Labeled it Closure. Dragged everything in. Every screenshot *T, every audio clip, every photo. Then zipped it. Locked it with a passcode. When Melissa came home that night, she greeted me like nothing had changed. "How was your day?" she asked, dropping her bag near the stairs. "Productive," I said. She kissed my cheek. It burned like ice. She poured herself a glass of wine, threw on music, started chopping vegetables. Like it was just another Tuesday. I watched her move through the kitchen, fluid and confident and so impossibly sure that the mask hadn't slipped. But it had. And I'd seen what was underneath. There was no confrontation. No movie scene breakdown. No raised voices echoing through the halls of our carefully curated home. That wasn't how I wanted this to play out. Not because I wasn't angry, but because I'd already spent too long reacting to things too late. Now it was my turn to act first. I didn't touch Melissa's phone. I didn't demand passwords or storm into her space demanding answers she'd only twist. I didn't need to. I had everything I needed, already backed up, already logged, already safely stored. What I needed now wasn't the truth. I had that. What I needed was control. And I still had just enough of it left to matter. That night, after Melissa fell asleep, her breathing calm, her limbs draped across the bed like we were still okay, I got out of bed, stepped into the hallway, and closed the door behind me. In the office, I opened a secure folder on my laptop titled Owl. It was a backup directory I'd created months ago during a quiet financial planning binge. It housed all our old tax filings, prenuptial documents, trust agreements, investment summaries, and property titles. I clicked open the folder labeled Asset Shielding. Melissa had signed the trust reassignment forms 2 years ago during a refinancing shuffle we did when interest rates dropped. I'd asked her to review and sign a small stack of routine property updates. She flipped through the packet while watching Netflix, barely glancing at the line that reclassified the deed to our house under a single beneficiary trust, mine. She'd even said, "Do I need to read all of this?" I said, "It's just legal housekeeping." She signed without question. Clause 9b of our prenup covered infidelity. She'd insisted on including it when we were first engaged, not because she didn't trust me, she said, but because she believed in clarity. "We don't need romance where we should have logic," she once told me. That clause stated that in the event of proven extramarital misconduct, the violating party forfeited any claim to jointly acquired assets post-wedding. We hadn't acquired many by design. The house had been bought before the marriage. The bulk of our savings were always kept separate. The accounts that looked joint were just shadow portals to auto-transfer funds from my solo high-yield savings accounts. That wasn't an accident. When I was younger, my uncle lost everything in a divorce because he trusted his feelings more than his documents. I learned early that love doesn't negate preparation. It just makes it more painful when you finally use it. That night, I initiated the reassignment order. The property trust's control would be rerouted to my private LLC, something I'd set up years ago for consulting work. I updated the manager account, revoked joint signatory permissions, and flagged our home as a single-party asset under protective holding. Melissa wouldn't know. Not yet. Next, I emailed my lawyer. Subject: Execute Clause 9b. No explanation. He didn't need one. We'd discussed hypotheticals before. "You'll never use it," he once said, "but it's good to have the insurance." I attached a zipped folder, closure.zip. Inside was all the evidence, metadata, timestamps, voice memos, message exports. Everything clean. Everything dated. By the time the clock hit 3 a.m., the machine was in motion. I got up the next morning, poured her coffee, kissed her forehead, and asked about her weekend plans. She told me she was thinking of having a girls' night. I smiled. Sounds fun. That day, I drove to the bank. In person. I sat across from the account manager, a guy named Chase who had helped us set up our joint accounts 4 years ago. "I need to update access permissions," I said, effective immediately. "Of course," he replied, polite and crisp. I removed her access to 3 accounts, 2 checking, 1 brokerage, and rerouted the residual balances to protected partitions under the trust's umbrella. I left 1 card functional. Just enough for groceries. The optics needed to hold until I was ready. That evening, while she posted a filtered boomerang of margaritas with the girls, I was finalizing property tax transfers and ordering locks changed with a delayed schedule. Monday morning. Noon. The next 3 days were normal. She kissed me goodbye. Laughed at Instagram. Took long showers. Called Kayla for catch-ups and scrolled Zillow listings for dream renovations we'd never make. I let her. I kept smiling. But inside I was unbuilding everything. Quietly. Precisely. The legal team was already drafting her formal notification. Asset control would be shifted by the end of the week. I wasn't kicking her out. Not yet. I was merely drawing lines. Hard, clean, notarized lines. She didn't notice. That was the thing. She didn't see the subtle shift in how I no longer left my phone unattended around her. How I no longer asked where she was going. How I stopped saying we. She didn't realize the shared calendar stopped syncing. Or that the security settings on the Nest Cam were updated. Or that her location on our tracking app now showed a generic placeholder from a spoofed API. She still laughed at night. Still ordered wine deliveries. Still texted behind angled screens like she was a ghost in a play. She didn't know the curtain was already falling. By Thursday, the trust reassignment had finalized. The mortgage company recognized the title shift. I called the insurance agency and reclassified the primary resident. By Friday, our joint utility accounts had been separated. The cable was transferred to a fresh account under my LLC. The thermostat's access code was changed. All of it under the radar. She still hadn't noticed. That weekend, she was gone. Another overnight with the girls. She didn't even say which girls this time. She didn't need to. I already knew she wasn't going to Kayla's. The iPad synced again that night. More messages from Ryan. A voice note. "You should have seen his face this morning. He still has no clue. I honestly think he trusts me more now than ever." I replayed it twice. Then I opened a new folder, Final Phase. Inside, I placed the documents I would have served on Monday. Her official removal from all jointly held titles. Her access termination notifications. Her relocation advisory packet. A polite, concise summary of the assets she no longer had claim to. No venom, no dramatics, just the facts. Dated, legal, inarguable, and above all, quiet. She'd never see it coming, because I'd done what she never expected. I played along, until I didn't. Melissa returned late Sunday night. It was past midnight when I heard the engine, then the crunch of gravel under tires. Her favorite heels clicked across the stone path as she approached the door. Confident, slow, like nothing had changed. She didn't know yet. Not really. She tried her key. The lock didn't turn. I heard her try again, jiggling it harder this time. Then a pause. Then a knock. I stayed seated at the far end of the living room, lights off, staring at the envelope I'd left taped to the front door. She knocked again, louder. Kevin? Silence. The porch light flicked on automatically, motion sensor. I imagined her staring at the door, confused. Not panicked. Not yet. Just trying to make sense of something that didn't compute. She'd always been confident in her ability to control situations, to bend moments to her will with a smile or a soft excuse. But she couldn't smile her way through a dead key and a locked gate. I had changed the codes that afternoon. Called the locksmith. Watched them reset the entire system, gate, garage, back entry. Everything. She was no longer authorized. Her name had already been removed from the title the day prior. This was her first step into unfamiliar territory. Powerlessness. 10 minutes passed before I heard her walk back to her car. That was how I knew she found the envelope. Inside, a notice of removal from the property title, per the reassigned trust. A printed letter from my lawyer outlining the shift in asset control, including a list of her no longer valid access points. Banking, property, utilities, vehicle registration. I included retrieval instructions, neutral, professional, unmistakably final. A moving company had boxed her belongings already, labeled, cataloged, stored in a temperature-controlled unit. She had 30 days to claim them, access code included. I didn't watch her leave. I didn't peek through the blinds or wait for the sound of the engine to fade. I just sat still and let it happen. There's a strange silence that comes after decisive action, like the quiet after a slammed door. Heavy but clean. She texted me at 1:14 a.m. What the hell is going on? No response. Then again 2 minutes later. Kevin, this isn't funny. Let me in. At 1:24. We need to talk. 2:03. Are you serious right now? Then nothing. She didn't call. Didn't try the back gate. She just disappeared into the night with a sealed envelope in hand and no more leverage in her back pocket. By morning, her sister had reached out. Did something happen between you two? Melissa showed up crying. Said she was locked out. I didn't respond right away. She followed up. She's not saying much, just that you flipped out. Can you help me understand? I didn't want to pull anyone else into this. But I also didn't know silence to someone who we *p***nized it so often. So I sent one file, one video, the hotel mirror clip, time-stamped and clear. No commentary, no accusation, just the truth. Her sister didn't reply. Not immediately. But an hour later, Melissa texted again. You sent it to her? Seriously. This is between us, Kevin. Why are you doing this? I didn't answer. What could I say that would mean anything? We weren't in the same reality anymore. I'd already said everything I needed to, just not with words. She stopped texting. For days. I later found out she wasn't staying at her sister's place after all. She tried. Briefly. But that door had closed too. Her sister had seen the messages, read them in full. I sent her the folder, not to ruin Melissa's relationships, but to make sure no more lies spread on my name. The truth was never a grenade. It was a disinfectant. By Tuesday, Melissa was living in a budget motel on the east side. I knew because her phone pinged one of the old devices still linked to our shared network. A tablet she forgot to wipe. Location sharing wasn't a choice anymore. It was inertia. She wasn't at work. That much was clear. She hadn't been since Monday morning, when she walked into her office and her badge wouldn't scan. I'd made a call weeks earlier, not out of revenge, but protection. My company had just closed a data-sharing contract with hers. She was listed on the compliance team. I submitted a conflict of interest report, quietly. Backed it with **TS. Names. Transfers. I didn't request her removal. I didn't have to. She was in violation of 3 policies she had co-authored. Commingling personal data with corporate channels. Using professional travel budgets for unapproved hotel stays. Transferring small discretionary funds from a department budget to a shell account tied to her name. She thought she'd buried it well. But Melissa was too confident in her ability to charm systems into submission. She didn't think anyone would look closely. Especially not me. She was wrong. When she walked in and her badge blinked red, the security guard gave her a soft shrug. I think you need to check with HR. That conversation lasted 12 minutes. She left with an envelope. Unemployed. Untethered. Unwelcome. The woman who once planned every step of our lives with color-coded spreadsheets was now cycling through public Wi-Fi and hourly motels. I didn't gloat. I didn't stalk her accounts or obsess over her next move. I just let it happen. The fallout wasn't cinematic. It was slow, quiet, administrative, like turning off a faucet and waiting for the last drops to fall. Her friends, those few she had confided in, went dark. Not out of betrayal, but exhaustion. She'd pulled them into the lie, and now the truth was heavy on everyone. One of them, someone I barely knew, DM'd me. Didn't know what she was doing to you. I'm sorry. I didn't reply. There wasn't much left to say. The loneliness she felt now wasn't punishment. It was the space left behind when you removed the people you thought would always be there. And I had always been there. Until I wasn't. Melissa returned to her office that Monday, expecting routine. Instead, her badge blinked red. The receptionist looked up, unsure how to help. You've been flagged for HR, she was told. In the glass-walled conference room, 2 compliance officers waited. She sat down smiling, then saw the documents. **TS. Funds traced to a shell account bearing her name. Hotel stays billed to professional development. All flagged by a new partner firm, mine. Ironically, she helped write the ethics code used to terminate her. When she stepped out, she saw me in the lobby, passing by without a glance. It wasn't theater. It was just procedure. Alone in a motel room, Melissa stared at her phone. No messages. No job. No access to the joint accounts. Ryan had vanished, his number now dead. Her sister blocked her. Friends stopped answering. Even her backup accounts were frozen under legal injunctions. On the closet shelf in the home she no longer owned, 1 box remained, her voice message transcript, labeled Exhibit D. She once curated a life of control, now reduced to silence, to absence. The life she built through lies collapsed without warning. And for the first time, no one came to rescue her. Not even herself.